All right, so today we're going to talk about how to start with nothing and develop a customer success program from scratch that not only delivers outstanding one-to-one customer care, but also creates the broader strategic insights that your company needs from you to shape its future. And we're going to do this step by step, starting with the most important things first. And we'll do this without you wasting time watching countless YouTube videos or attending webinars that say they have all the answers, but end up leaving you with more questions, or reading article after article from CRM providers that honestly just want to sell you more software and don't really care about your challenges. You'll finally have an end-to-end process you can trust because it's worked for dozens of other leaders in your same situation, and it's backed up by years of research. Now, you've probably been very successful in other roles, and your boss trusts you. You might even know the product inside and out. You're probably familiar with customer success, even done it in the past. But starting from scratch is a whole different ballgame. Now, in the past, the thinking goes, well, you've worked with customers, and you know what success means. So how hard can this customer success thing be, right? It just sounds like the new lingo for customer service. Yeah, let's go with that one. Now, this is obviously wrong, but that's the impression people have that haven't managed customer success. Everything is easier when you don't know the details. And many customer success teams are great at solving customers' one-to-one problems, but they're terrible at reporting on them. Now, you might think, hey, as long as I keep the customer happy, who cares about reporting? Well, you should, because accurate reporting across multiple customers is the only way you can become predictive of customer behavior and narrow your focus on the things that really matter to your customer. Now, if it's done right, it allows you to solve customer challenges before they even know they have a problem. Now, that focus is what you need to scale with your company instead of always falling behind the curve and scrambling to catch up. Accurate data is how you become the primary customer advocate for your company. It's not a title somebody gives you or a mindset. It's you presenting hard, actionable data that's credible enough to influence the company on behalf of the customer. But you have to be able to find it first. Now, the good news is there's a better way than doing this on your own. It's called the Predictive Customer Behavior Coaching Model. But before we get into that, a quick story. Chris worked for a healthcare technology company that had recently acquired a couple of SaaS products. They wanted to add products to their servicing model that would grow subscription revenue year over year. Now, this wasn't Chris's first time leading a customer success group, but it had been a while since he had to talk about delivering it from scratch. It didn't take long to realize that this was a whole different animal. Suddenly, he had to make dozens of decisions and didn't really have time to think through the longer-term implications because he was also dealing with customers and his day job. Sound familiar? More importantly, there was no one to talk to or work through situations. There just weren't enough hours in the day. Now, all the different success communities, webinars, and articles were helpful, but he knew he needed something more customized to meet the needs of his business. And he received input from his boss and others at his company, but they didn't get into the tactical details that he needed to execute these initiatives. And remember, it's always easy to give advice when you don't know the details. In this situation, it's difficult to even know where to start. Now, let's be honest. Everybody wants to look good in front of their boss, or at the very least, not look bad. It's not just a self-serving exercise. It's important for your department. But most people badly misinterpret what their boss needs from them as a leader. It's not about what you specifically do. It's what you're responsible for getting done that matters. In fact, the more you can accomplish through other people, the better leader you actually are. According to ThriveYard, an award-winning career advice website, the top 2 of their list of 15 qualities of a good leader are having a clear vision and knowing how to execute on that vision. Note the language they use. It's not about leaders executing it themselves. They specifically say knowing how to execute it. Good leaders can articulate the vision, but don't get bogged down in the execution. But it's almost impossible not to get bogged down when you're doing it by yourself. Said a better way, it is not your job to do all this by yourself, but it is your job to figure out how to get it done. And Chris understood that. So keep it in mind as you watch the rest of the video. And it's important to point out, Chris had the knowledge and the skill set to do this himself, but he knew it wasn't what was best for his company in the current situation. He just didn't have the time to do it justice and deal with the demands of his day job. Now, this kind of maturity of leadership can really set you apart. Before I finish Chris's story, I need to do an introduction to me. This video isn't about me, but it's helpful for you to know some of the context and the background where this coaching model came from. I promise we'll get there and it'll be worth your time. My name is Dan Hazing, and I've been in process management for over 20 years, implementing Six Sigma process improvement projects and managing large international contact centers. Now, during that time, I also moved into SaaS software and spent over a decade managing subscription products, implementing them globally, as well as developing customer success operations for large and small companies. I kept seeing a real gap in the marketplace around customer success, and the size of the company didn't seem to matter. I developed the Predictive Customer Behavior Index for companies with a customer success process to measure and improve their ability to predictively service their customers, specifically tailored to the size and growth trajectory of the company. Now, the process has been incredibly effective for customer success leaders with the customer success process that need to get up to speed fast on what's really happening at their organization and develop a plan to close the gaps. It's based on over 150 standards across the customer lifecycle and starts with 200 questions for different levels of the organization. Now, these are all the items we cover with multiple standards under each. Now, this might be a good place to pause if you want to look at more detail or get some ideas, but be sure to come back because we're going to talk about you next. Now, most of the improvement projects that come from this process deliver over a 4-to-1 return on the investment. It's been incredibly effective, but the one drawback, it doesn't help the customer success leader starting from scratch that doesn't have a process to begin with. So I did some research. Most consultants want to sell you software, a process, or a playbook that looks interesting, but isn't tailored to your business. Now, they'll come in all hands on deck, guns blazing, and deliver you a report in a short amount of time. And they'll stress how fast it is, but that's because speed is what works best for them, not for you. They don't want to get bogged down in your real problems. They want to stay way up here, deliver a report, associate themselves with a cute kid, get paid, and get the heck out. Well, that's great. But the problem is, if you're starting from scratch, your process in your company hasn't evolved yet. So you get stuck with a cookie cutter process that doesn't fit. It's either too advanced and over-engineered, or it's outdated in a month. Plus, you weren't involved in creating it. So honestly, it just sits on a shelf and collects dust, just like an old textbook. Now, for leaders without a customer success process, and if your process isn't documented, you don't really have a process. I developed the Predictive Customer Behavior coaching model. I reverse engineered those 150 standards and 200 questions that work so well in the assessment process into a coaching model that's customizable to the specific objectives you want to achieve. You get to pick. Now, this isn't a computer model or a book you never find time to read. These are one-to-one live interactive conversations with me, guided by an established framework that's proven to work and deliver outstanding returns for dozens of companies. It's the perfect starting place. Stop trying to reinvent customer success on your own. We develop the foundational elements you want to implement that are designed to grow with you and your company. Now, that puts you in the driver's seat with the trusted guidance of somebody who's been there before. My sole focus is to make you look good, and it's all 100% guaranteed. Don't yet know what to implement? That's okay. My coaching model starts with a comprehensive process where we go into detail about your company, the values, and the way you intend to approach your customers. We then look at the outcomes you want to achieve and identify the benefits you can expect. Now, this early process helps you narrow down the list and focus on the few things that really matter. Narrowing your focus to the few things that matter is the only way to get things done in an environment as busy as yours. Now, let me say that again. Narrowing your focus to the few things that matter is the only way to get things done in an environment as busy as yours. After that, we execute the customized coaching plan backed up by the power and proven standards of the Predictive Customer Behavior Index assessment process. Now, those standards were developed by working with successful companies who were once in your shoes. Stop doing all the research yourself and hopping from half-completed project to half-completed project. It's such a waste of valuable time, and you don't have enough time as it is. The time it takes you to develop a customer success strategy and process from scratch while you're doing your day job is a real cost to you and your business. And it's a huge physical drain. Until now, no one has built an effective model to help you because it takes so much time and your business is always changing. But we've eliminated that extra time with this new model. for less than the cost of a lost customer or a new hire placement fee. The predictive customer behavior coaching model can get you up and running and well on the path to becoming the primary customer advocate for your company. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. We'll customize the work to fit your needs based on what you want to implement and how much development time you need from me. The cost and my involvement are completely up to you and your needs. Now I get it. Your company's an innovative company, and there's this feeling. It's almost a pressure that you should implement this all on your own. It feels less expensive that way. But innovation is not recreating something that's already been invented and hoping it works better. Don't wind up with this guy. Take the computer or the phone you're watching this on. Why'd you buy a computer instead of build your own? There are thousands of videos on YouTube on how to build your own computer. You have some technical people at your company that could probably pull that off, right? It never occurred to you to build your own computer because it would be a huge distraction. It isn't part of your company's mission, and it doesn't even make sense. But neither does facing this challenge on your own. And you'll recognize that about a day after we start working together. Without this kind of help, new leaders are constantly reinventing the wheel. Now, the problem with that, outside of it being really expensive and taking way longer than you think, is that you never really know when the process is done. So you either waste time over-engineering the thing, or it isn't developed enough and constantly breaks down with new scenarios. You never know when you're on the right path. So how do you know when to say, well, that didn't work, and throw away all the work you've just done, or to keep it and fix it, even though your suspicion is it might be broken? Now multiply this across dozens of moving parts, and it's easy to see the risks involved in creating customer success from scratch on your own. It is not a good look for anyone. The other thing that some customer success leaders struggle with is approaching their leader. Now, many think their CEO or CFO's job is to save money. It's not in the budget. We've all heard that, right? So they're intimidated about approaching their boss. But look around at all the money being spent. The boss's job is not to save money. Their job is to get a return on the money they spend. If they say no to something, it's because they don't understand the return they're going to get. Most CEOs would love to have better processes and more developed leaders, but they can't do all that by themselves. They'd be happy to pay for it if they were confident they were going to get a return. So the real question is, how does presenting something like this to your boss make you look? If it's presented right, it makes you look like you know your department is critical to the company and you're willing to do whatever it takes to move your process to the next level. It demonstrates leadership, even if the answer is no. Now, I'm always happy to have that discussion because I guarantee the return. And my sole focus is to make you look good. The better you look, the better I look. And speaking of returns and looking good, now's a good time to get back to Chris. Now, as you might have figured out, Chris hired me. But here's the part you didn't know. We developed an onboarding process in his CRM, which was HubSpot. Now, you don't need a CRM. He just happened to have one. We defined and mapped his process across his company, which included a handoff from sales and capture the critical information that he not only needed to manage the relationship, but also address the customer renewal. And yes, that's all done in the onboarding process. Customer renewals always start with onboarding. Now, we worked together on the items he wanted included in his playbook, which included customer segmentation, different servicing options, customer at-risk definitions, and those are so important, and reporting, both in the individual CSM level and the critical company-wide reporting. We also worked on automation and developing customer surveys. All of this is documented in a playbook with Chris, and he has the ownership and ability to change it as his company grows. And these processes all meet the rigorous standard of the Predictive Customer Behavior Index assessment process. So they aren't just something thrown together on a napkin that'll only work for a month or two. We even set objectives for his annual review with his boss, something a lot of people plan on doing, but never get around to doing. And the best part is he has a knowledgeable resource to reach out to whenever his company starts to scale and he has questions. The challenge to organize this amount of complexity is real. Solving it starts with booking a complimentary discovery session with me to see if you're right for the program. I'm not able to work with everyone that needs my help, but if I take you on as a client, you'll get a money-back guarantee on everything we do. There's literally zero risk. If you need help implementing customer success from scratch, have questions on a specific process, or just want to talk about benchmarks and best practices, please book some time with me in the link below. There's never an obligation, and I promise you, we'll both learn something we didn't know before.